Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Jonathan Henderson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 16th Annual Umoja Conference. My name is Maya Williams.
And we are going to be your conference MCs today. We want to welcome you to this pre-session, our CTE panel. Of course, our opening ceremony will be later on today, but Umoja has graciously, we have the honor of being able to provide pre-sessions for you so that you can begin to whet your appetites for the rest of the time that we have during the conference.
I love how you phrase that, John, like an appetizer, if you will.
An appetizer, absolutely, absolutely. And so we want to get right into it. If you have any more questions about anything that's going on today, please visit the Accelerants platform. Everything that you need to know about the conference is on there. If you want to talk to somebody face to face, then you can go to our help desk, which is also located on the Accelerants platform. Just click the link and you can go on there and speak with someone. But without further ado, we want to hand it over to our regional coordinator of the Bay Area, Ms. Katrina King.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Maya. Just welcome everyone to this experience. Throughout the experience, we'll be shouting out some of our Umoja scholars. These are Umoja students throughout the state of California who earned a 3.0 or higher in the fall of 2020. For example, from Cosumnes River College, Jadia Williams studying CIS and computer science. From Mount San Antonio College, Justin Argueta studying aviation science. From City College of San Francisco, Alexander Diaz studying welding. From El Camino College, Jeremiah Deloney studying automotive collision repair. This is just to name a few. As you hear, the education pathways of some of our scholars are in career technical education. So how fitting for us to start off this year's experience with a panel of CTE experts to demystify career technical education. Our panel will be moderated by none other than Dr. Trelisa Glasitoff. Affectionately known as Trey, she describes herself as a woman of few words, but she has many, many talents. She has over 15 years of education experience, additional years of experience in the healthcare, business, and technology industries. She holds a BS in finance, a master's in health services administration, a master's in education and instructional technology, and a PhD in computing technology. Come on, Umoja, let's Zola up and show some love for Umoja's curriculum developer, Dr. Trelisa Glasitoff.
Thank you, Katrina. You know you're making me blush. I'm over here smiling, cheeks are burning because I'm blushing so much, but thank you for that introduction. I am so excited about this conversation with our panelists. I'm going to, let me share my screen real quick to get us into this mode. But we are going to have a great conversation. We have some dynamic panelists with us, but before we get started, I do want us to take a couple of notes. We are live streaming this on our website. So if you have peers or colleagues that may want to listen in on this conversation, but they're not part of the conference, they're not going to be here for the full time, make sure that they go to our website and go to click on the conference and go to our virtual stage page. We are live streaming on our website. We will engage you in the chat as well as your voice. But if you are not speaking, please mute yourself so we can avoid some feedback. And then, of course, we have moderated chats, and Dr. Banks, Ms. Katrina King will be helping us to pull those questions that you're going to be having for our panelists as we enter this discussion. And then we also want you to make sure that you're mindful of the space that you're taking, because we're going to have a lot of questions that I know our panelists are going to want to address. So make sure that you make space for others as well. Okay. But today we're going to talk about unpacking and demystifying career technical education and training on our campuses. And we're going to do that by uplifting some of our Umoja practices. This is going to be the first of many conversations that we're going to have as a collective community around CTE education. So the first practice that we want to uplift is acceleration. And that really means engaging our students from a capacity perspective, where we are creating space for students to explore, to experiment, to share, and to create this new knowledge. And so we want to make sure that we take a look at how are we creating that space for our students to engage their gifts, to ignite their passions, and to accelerate their learning. So part of this discussion that we want to have today is around creating that space for our students to accelerate. We're going to uplift the practice of manifesting, which means that we're going to put what we are learning into practice. We're going to share it with our families, with our communities, and we're going to make sure that when we practice, that it's relevant, that it's connected, and it's applicable to our lives. So we're going to examine how do we develop those relationships that our students will need on the campus, in industry, in our community, so that once they are ready to go and practice what they've learned, they have the opportunity and support to do that and manifest those academic and professional goals. And the last practice we're going to uplift in this discussion is community building, communal knowledge. We have some dynamic panelists here. We have the community, we have our students, we have a lot of wealth, and we want to tap into that intellectual, that social, that community-rich capital that we have as a community to share knowledge, our expertise, and also just to discuss, what's going well in this area of CTE and what do we need to be having further conversations about. So those are our intentions with this first of many conversations. So I want to whet your appetite a little bit. Want to get you thinking about some questions for these panelists. So when I was thinking about CTE, one of the questions I had was, you know, when did CTE, when did career tech education really become formalized and structured in our current education system? And the Association of Career and Technical Education had this brief history on the timeline. And we're not gonna go over this timeline. I'm just gonna share 3 points that came to me when I looked at this timeline. The first was 1917, that starting point. This is the first time that the federal government not only put money behind CTE, but put laws behind it, put legislation behind it. So I was like, what was going on in 1917? That was the tail end of the First World War. So we were still in the war. So that lets me know that CTE, the importance of it was sustaining our economic stability as a country. A lot of people were going off to support the war or were fighting the war. We had a lot of people die because of the war. And so we had to have some kind of structure and incentive for people to stand in that gap while we were in the middle of a war. And so this signaled to me, okay, this is the first time the federal government put some money and some words behind it. The other thing that stood out to me is the number of laws and legislation over the years that the federal government has tagged as career technical education. That signals to me it is an important part of our educational system that's held primarily by our community colleges. So it is an important piece. I think it's a hidden jewel. I love it as a maker and as a hands-on person. I often take courses in CTE areas, but it is an important part of that educational structure. And the last thing that stood out to me was this is only one timeline. Now, if you overlay other timelines, right, educational timeline, our social condition timeline, our history as a country, you start overlaying all of those additional timelines and figuring out what was happening during each of these key moments. Now you're beginning to get a fuller story, a fuller picture around the history of CTE and how it may have affected our pathways as a Black community. How did it affect our social mobility, our economic stability, the opportunity to further our education when we had all of these other dynamic timelines overlaid on top of it. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit, because we're going to see some effects of everything that has happened thus far. So this is the first thing that I'm going to use to whet your appetite, this timeline. Think about everything that has happened from 1917 until now, right? The next 3 slides that I'm going to share you before we introduce our panelists is just some data. I'm not going to speak to the data. I'm just going to show you the data and tell you what it is around our community colleges and CTE. The first thing that we see, we have a graph that shows us a snapshot, one academic year, of degree and certificate attainments. What this is showing you is the number of students, number of CTE students by ethnicity who have earned a degree or certificate or an apprenticeship journey status in that academic year. And if you want to, the Black and African American, that is the navy blue, okay? So I'm not going to say it just to whet your appetite. Start thinking about those questions that you may have because of all of what you're seeing before we start our discussion. The next snapshot is transfers. This is showing us for the 2017-2018 academic year, the number of CTE students who, after they've completed their CTE program, decided to transfer to a 4-year institution. And the last one I'm going to share with you is the median annual earning for CTE students who have finished their program. So this is showing you by ethnicity a student who has completed their program, has graduated from the community college and decided not to go into the 4-year, they're going straight into industry. Okay. Now, if you have some questions, start typing in the chat, let us know. But I'm about to introduce our panelists who's going to do the rest of the talking for the session. We have 4 dynamic panelists here to talk with you about CTE. And I'm going to briefly introduce them because they're going to talk a little bit more about their roles and responsibilities and where they're situated. So first we have Kwana Rollins, who is our coordinator from College of Alameda. She is the career education coordinator. We have Danielle Smith Morton, who is a STEM counselor from San Bernardino Valley College. We have Vaughn Lawson, who is the Dean of Career Tech Education from Mount San Jacinto College. And we have Lisa Nguyen, who is the Workforce Development Program Coordinator from Diablo Valley College. So I'm gonna snap them up. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute so that we can have our panelists unmic. And I would love to pose the first question for anyone who wants to take it. My first question to you is to tell us about your experience with career tech education, specifically as it relates to your personal experience as a CTE student, your work with CTE students, and your role and responsibilities at the college. Who would like to start? Vaughn, I see you are on mic. I'm going to give you the mic.
And I appreciate that, Dr. Glavatov. Normally being a Southern boy as I am, I was going to let the ladies go first. And I would be remiss first if you would allow me to pay honor and respect to the Umoja tribe and community, to your founders and to your executive leaders, and then of course to this dynamic team. I would also be remiss if I did not say thank you to Dr. Banks. I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Dr. Banks for such a humbling and gracious invitation to come and share some small ideas with you that we can share with young people and help them to reach their respective dreams. As I shared with you here, like I say, being a Southern boy, I am an alien. I'm not from the state of California. I'm from the great state of Oklahoma. And with that, carry certain traditions and styles. I have been involved with CTE for a number of years, and that was not the cup of tea that I drank when I was in school. I need you to know that that wasn't the Kool-Aid I sipped. I am a traditionalist, having majored in sociology and gerontology, and with a background in graduate work in political science. I had to fall in love with career and technical education because I realized that if we did it right, we would rebuild the middle class in this nation, and we would give people the opportunity to realize the American dream. And so I had an awakening, having worked in higher education and also worked in career tech, first in Oklahoma. I served as a VP there in a career tech center for a number of years before eventually winding up out here in California. I learned very early that people learn differently, and that we have to break out of this mindset that somehow you have to be on a specific pathway in order to be successful. You must go to high school and finish in 4 years. You must go to college and finish in 4 years. You must go into graduate school and be done at a certain time, and then that's what you'll do. And I had to realize that everybody did not learn the exact same way. I did because I had parents that pushed me, and I will tell you that I am a product of a HBCU. For those of you that don't know that, historically Black college and university, very proud of that fact. That is my pedigree. And so I had people that put me on the track, but I had colleagues, classmates, friends who did not take that same journey, but went into the trades. And so I began to realize that my friends like Reggie Robinson, who is a prominent mechanic back home, who did not do as well academically, for some reason could break an engine down blindfolded and put it back together. And we have a number of students out there like that. I'm not going to talk much longer because I know there are a lot of questions that others need to answer, but the idea is that career and technical education provides applicable education that helps people to realize dreams. And that's important, to give back to their community, to begin to take care of their families. And more especially, there is no end in sight. That was the other thing that I had to learn. In other words, we used to think, oh, voc ed meant you learned how to weld and that was all you did. But now today, what career and technical education means is that you can start under the hood of a car, but you can also end up being a PhD or a dean or a vice president or even the college president. There is no end in sight with regard to where career and technical education can take a student.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Kawana Rollins, can you tell us about your experience with CTE and your journey to where you are at?
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm just really excited to be here. But my journey with CTE, it was a long one. You know, I am a product of CTE. I am a 2-time CTE graduate, have both my AAs in business and accounting. And I just recently completed my bachelor's degree. And so I say that to say that CTE meets you where you are. Like Mr. Vaughn just stated, you know, some people's transition from high school isn't directly to the university. And I tell our students all the time that life happens. So CTE is so flexible that it allows you to kind of chip away at your goals while you deal with life. You know, I have students who say, you know, right after high school, you know, look, I can't commit to a full-time school schedule because now I have to be an earner. I have to contribute to my household. So again, CTE meets you where you are. And I just love the programs that are available to the students because it gives you real world information and application where you can really get hands-on experience and just kind of figure out, is this something that you like to do? Is this something that you want to do for the long haul? So there's so many opportunities with CE. All the programs are fun, and it's just something that, you know, I'm passionate about and I believe in, and I wouldn't sell it to you if I didn't believe in it. CTE, all the programs are wonderful.
We are happy that you are here joining us today. Ms. Danielle Smith-Morton, tell us about your experience. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here. I come from a background of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. However, I really believe that CTE is the gateway into the transferable STEM courses. I work a lot with STEM students and also with the CTE students. And also with students of color, just to show them how historically, how we have been cooking and that has translated into culinary arts, how we've been taking care of people and that has translated into nursing, how we have been fixing our own cars and that's mechanical, you know, learning mechanics and then learning further how to do mechanical engineering. All of CTE is a part of where we come from, where we're going, and things that we use in everyday lives. It is a hands-on pathway in order to get to where you want to go. So for those students or those individuals that maybe aren't like, they don't want to do the books and write a lot, they may want to do something hands-on. CTE is a great pathway for that. I also think that when I'm looking at CTE, there's definitely like 3 stages because I'm a STEM counselor. And it would be for those students that just want to take those courses. You want to build skills. You want to do something that will help you get hired, right? So you're moving from, for example, not just knowing material, but you're being trained, you're learning the skill, and you're moving from being effective to being great. So what CTE does is it helps you from being just effective. It means that you know that you have a little bit of knowledge to being great at what you're doing. And it gives you transferable skills, and it gives you all the things that you need in order to be hired and to progress inside of your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And Lisa,
Great.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, like everyone else, I really appreciate the invitation to speak with everybody in this conference. And CTE actually, kind of like Juana, was my career pathway. It's how I got to where I am today. At 18 years old, I was pregnant with my first child, and I had to figure out how I was going to get a college degree, which I knew would support me in the future, but also provide for my family. And it was recommended that I take a couple of early childhood education courses at my local community college. At the time, I had no idea that those were career education courses, but I took a few courses, found out early on that if I took those courses, I could get my certificate to become a paraprofessional, which is kind of like a teacher's assistant. But they also told me if I kept going, I could earn my AA, and which I did. And they also taught me that not only could I build on my academics and my degrees and certificates, but I can improve and move forward in a my career trajectory. So I went on, got my AA in early childhood education, moved to my BA, and then got my master's in education, all while being able to work. And those degrees helped me move up and led me to where I am now, being a program coordinator in workforce development that supports our career education programs. So career education is a passion of mine, not only personally, but also the good that I see that it could bring to our community, our students. Before I transitioned to community college, I was working with high schoolers. And like many of the other panelists have mentioned, it's not 4-year to a university is not everybody's path, whether or not that's due to financial reasons, family obligations, or personal choice. And CTE allows students to have options. And part of my role is making sure that those options are leading students to livable wages in their careers. And CTE allows you to do that. It allows you to go through and take a 10-month program and get a certificate in a field like dental. You could become a dental assistant in 10 months. Or if you're thinking about like computer science or sports medicine, you can go through a CTE path that will lead you to transfer to a 4-year. So they're stackable, which means you can build on each step along the way, and it's all focused on getting you into a career. And that's what I like about it, because it does allow people from different backgrounds and different situations and different ideas on what they need from themselves in that moment in their life to still get into the workforce and be successful.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to come back to you because I have a question in the chat, but I want to frame it with a question that I think you can talk to, and that's around that workforce development. What is that, and how does that work for our students?
Definitely. So I can speak kind of more from like where I sit at DVC, Diablo Valley College. Our workforce development department supports our CE programs. So I work with our students, I work with faculty, I work with industry, all in the aims of providing innovative, collaborative programming that is up to date with the skills that students need to enter in the workforce. So our job is to really just get those partnerships with industries, support our students with career exploration. A lot of times students go in with a major that they're interested in, not realizing that there's a whole host of jobs that they can, and options for work that they can have with their major. When I started in early childhood education, I never knew that I could end up being a program coordinator in workforce development. I didn't even know that that was a position. And so one of my roles is just exposure for students, letting them know what their options are within the majors, within their career paths, and then connecting that, making sure that our programming, our curriculum is up to date. So once they leave us, once they have their degree or certificate and they're going into that workforce, they can be hireable, they're employable with all the up-to-date skills. And so workforce is very instrumental in providing the funding and the resources and the support that our students can go out and really get into the careers that they're passionate about.
Yeah, I heard about that relationship, right? We have the campus, the college, the industry, the community, of just really creating those spaces, those learning spaces for students to gain knowledge, to practice their knowledge, and then to apply. And now, so I have a question from the village here, and this is for everybody. This is from Devon Walker. He posed it to Mr. Lawson, but I'm gonna open it up to everybody. And that is, how can CTE help to rebuild Black Wall Street?
I'll be happy to take that with young man. First of all, one of the things that you should recognize that in CTE under our TOPS codes, business is a part of career and technical education. And so you can learn those skills that operate business. The other thing is, let's understand finance is the thing that drives anything, the idea that you can make money. And I think a lot of people don't realize how well CTE does pay in the long run. And so I just want to give you just a snippet. I think Dr. Glazatoff, for showing you that panel, you showed median incomes. And so I'm not taking issue with what you said, but I know that it pays a lot more. So median is in the middle, median versus where a person actually earns. When they first established strong workforce in this state, in terms of a program, holistically, the idea was they developed some 25 recommendations. And here's one of the things they discovered in that work, and it's just a bit dated, but it's still relevant. They said that for a family of 4 in the state of California, you needed to earn about $60,771 not to be in poverty. In other words, to be above poverty. And I got to tell you, if y'all are living in the LA area, you're not living off of that. So, but that's what the state is saying, okay? Now, here's the thing. If you have a general associate degree in one of the traditional liberal arts, after about 5 years, that person is going to earn roughly $38,500 a year. That's what they're going to earn. If you have an associate degree in a career and technical education field background, after 5 years, that person is earning roughly $66,000. That's how you rebuild Black Wall Street. The idea that you are able to earn money that goes back into our communities. And when you say Black Wall Street, I'm from Tulsa, by the way. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So the idea that you can pipe money back in. When I talk to students about this possibility of earning, and I can give you a number of examples of programs, as I'm sure other speakers can, where they can earn a lot more. I always tell them, son, $66,000 is Mustang GT money. You have to talk to them where they are. That's the ability for you not to have to live with your parents. You have to talk to them where they are. And so that's how you help to rebuild our communities, pipe money back into our institutions so that they can thrive and survive. So I hope I've answered that young man's question. If I'm not, please ask it again. I'll be happy to continue to elaborate. I'm going to hush now.
He said he loved the breakdown. He loved the breakdown.
All right.
Ms. Rollins, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead and
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn, for that starter. But one of the things, how you can rebuild Black Wall Street is that CTE programs also teach you about entrepreneurship. And many of these programs that we offer, it's essential worker training, like building, maintaining vehicles, aircraft, dental, nursing, all these things, that are still working while things are shut down. So it also teaches you the business aspects of how to run your own business. So you might learn how to work on a car, but you know what, when the mechanics place that you are working for, if that shuts down, you can still fix other people's cars, and you'll learn how to, like, what's the going rate, how to charge them, how to run things. So I think the whole principle of Black Wall Street is not being dependent on other folks and being able to sustain ourselves. So, I think that career education gives us the ability to do those things, because there's a lot of people who are in the trades that, didn't suffer much during this pandemic. And that speaks a lot. There's a lot of people who are earning, who are in the technical environment, who earn way more than I do. I mean, so, when you look at these things, the programs and your earning potential and your ability to just sustain yourself in that way, I think that's a great start to reestablishing the Black Wall Street.
And I want to just piggyback on what both of you guys had just said, that part of what workforce development does, and Mr. Vaughn had mentioned earlier, strong workforce funds. Those are funds that the state has given to help CTE, career education programs, be innovative, be collaborative. And one of the things that we're doing on our campus with those funds is really building out our small business entrepreneurship programming. So business is a career education CTE pathway, but we also know, like Kawana was saying, that mindset of being a small business entrepreneur isn't limited to just business. So on our campus, we've had our different programs collaborate with each other. We have students who are in our culinary program who can now earn a culinary certificate that's in entrepreneurship. So if you want to start a food truck, but you have this skill in culinary and cooking, we're now giving you the skills to not only run your culinary, but run a business. We've partnered with multiple like drone programs. That was big. A lot of people, now we've connected that with entrepreneurial. So if you want to have your, learn how to repair drones, or want to start a business where you're going around doing drone footage for real estate companies, we're going to help you learn that. And so part of that is now creating your own business with where you're passionate at. A big one that came up in our industry with horticulture. Students in that field, you don't really make a whole lot of money owning your own, if you own your own lawn service. But a big thing in California that came up was cannabis. So we now are coming up with entrepreneurial businesses for people who are thinking of going into that business. So it's all really focused on where people are at, helping you build your abilities and skills sets so that you can go out there in what it looks like for you. So whether that's doing the technical side or getting into owning your own business or operating your own business.
I may come back around to this if we have time, but I do want to touch on, we touched on careers. I also want to touch on that college transfer. And Danielle, you started to talk about it when you introduced yourself, of how CTE can also lead to those transferable degrees to continue the education and at a 4-year. Can you talk more about what that would look like for a student to want to be a CTE student, but also they have plans to transfer?
Definitely. So first of all, I think I started to touch on, I feel like there are 3 stages to this. The first stage would be obtaining your certificate. The second would be getting an associate's degree. And now we have associate degrees to transfer. The schools have been, the community colleges have now been working on taking these CTE programs and creating pathways with local colleges so that students are able to transfer to four-year universities. So to give you an example, I think I used, we have at Valley College water technology, and that will transfer into either geography or it transfers into water hydrology. So those are some sort of things. If you look at LVN, you can transfer that into a BSN program. Those students that are in culinary arts, they transfer over into nutrition or dietitian, or at Cal Poly Pomona, they have a food program where you learn how to actually create food, not just not just cook it, but now you're a creator. And to go even further into that, they teach you how to own your own business, how to manage it, what sorts of skills and that you need, accounting, business management, how to pair wine with food, things like that. There's so much that's involved. It's not just about taking a class and learning that one thing. I think education has evolved in a way that it is more applied. So students are learning now how to apply this education. So when they take these classes in the CTE, there's so many that transfer. There's also the way that the CTE programs are starting to be devised now is that they're having them so the students can do internships, apprenticeships. They can, for example, at San Bernardino Valley College, we are looking for 55 students, and I think we're going to get some from San Jacinto, but I may be speaking too soon. 55 students that for a machinist job out there in San Jacinto area. So we're developing partnerships with other colleges. So these students, they're looking for 55 students that can work in this machinist job, but they go to school in the evening. So the industries now they want our students to continue their education. So they create a program so students can go to school and they can also work. Another example would be, we have a program with SCE. Students start off by making $35 an hour. They take a certain programs at our school, and then they will go to SCE, and they start off making $35 an hour. The problem with that is interviewing, but we can go back to that. So, there's this holistic approach to students actually getting these jobs. But the point is, once they go to SCE wants them to continue their education. So they don't just stop at the community college, they continue on and get their degree. And that is an entry-level job that will pay them more in the future.
I like how you addressed the CTE, but then you translated it back to some of the traditional liberal arts and programs. We did have a question. I believe this may be coming from a faculty member in the community. They said there are a lot of us that teach in the social sciences and the humanities, and they're wondering how do they integrate the principles and concepts of CTE into those social science and liberal arts disciplines.
Can I just start real quick? I think that social sciences are everything. And what I mean by that is that it is a basket that is woven in between. Students need those skills. They need to know about people. For example, sociology, how do you work with people? How do you apply this when I'm working in a job with someone that does not look like me? You can take those actual skills that you've learned from those courses and apply them to this job because they help you gain a better sense of self and a better sense of community around you. It is really about becoming not just independent, but going into this interdependence, which means that you're able to work with people, you're able to interact with them, But just to go back really quick, I think that it's also important that instructors begin to show how these classes work in everyday life. Because I'm in STEM, a lot of students ask me, what am I going to do with this math? Well, how am I going to apply it? How does this make sense in my life? It makes sense when you start looking at how you actually apply that in your life. So for faculty that teach those sort of courses, psychology, sociology, anthropology, things like that, economics, it matters.
I can jump in also. I think it's important that, like Danielle said, connecting those career skills in not only in CE programs, but our general education, liberal arts programs, helping students really see about what kind of careers are open for me if I'm taking this major, and then what are the skills I need to be successful once I get into that. So some of that is taking a look at employable skills that can go into for every job that you need, not just CE jobs. And so I think as faculty of more liberal arts or general education courses, helping students connect the career piece is one of the ways that you can help students. Not because we do a lot of that with career education, and I think some of that with guided pathways is having students take a look at careers throughout any of the educational paths that they're trying to take.
What I would suggest if I had to have that discussion, and I don't mean to step on any toes, but I always tell people I believe in being candid and transparent when we have these discussions. The best analogy that I can make is that the liberal arts and sciences in CTE is no different than the discussion of equity when we look at our curriculum. Sometimes that word gives people heartburn, but what it boils down to is equity is being able to simply see yourself in what it is that you're studying. In other words, if we want to look at the liberal arts and sciences, and that's where I came from, that's what I've lectured in, political systems and those types of things, and so the social sciences. The idea is, how do I connect it to CTE so that those individuals see themselves? I like what Miss Danielle said here from San Bernardino when she spoke to the idea that you're studying mathematics. How do I use that? Let me show you how you use that when you're in automotive. Let me show you how you use that when you're over here in digital media, and when you can make it applicable. So that means that that professorate on that liberal arts side has to sometimes think outside the box in order to be able to more closely relate to that student, so that student sees themselves.
And I'm going to uplift acceleration again, of creating those spaces, of being flexible, that live learning, of giving students time to explore in your field, to experiment. And failing is learning, right? Be able to just try, do, and then be able to make the connections. But we have to give them space to do that, right? To see the connection between chemistry and English and automotive mechanics. They're going to make those connections, but they got to have that space, those learning opportunities to explore and to experiment and to see where it all fits from their lens. Any other words before we hit the next question? All right. We had a question in the community around, you know what, I'm going to take the next question here. We talked about employability skills. I want you to flesh that out because I know it's a big deal right now. Danielle talked about it. You know, that's those softer skills, right? Those relational skills, not necessarily the tech, but the relational piece. How is that integrated for our CTE students? Kawana, I see your hand. You're going to be the first one that's going to take this one. But how are those skills developed, or students given the opportunity to develop those skills on the campuses or in industry?
So, we have industry partnerships where we collaborate with industry, and they tell us what they're looking for when candidates appear before them, and they're interviewing. They're like, you know what, they look good. We know they know the technical aspects of the job, but they don't really know how to articulate what it is that they know, and so they help us coach our students. Sometimes they come in and they participate if the schedule allows. So one of the things that really big with CE is that we do carve out a space where we develop soft skills. We show them how to look professional in a professional setting, how to speak, and then how to simple things like turn your cell phones off while you're in an interview, because believe it or not, it happens a lot where the cell phone is ringing while they're having an interview. Make sure that they're punctual. Just little things that are really obvious, but sometimes we have to remind them to do these things. So it's a huge part of our training. So it's not just about, learning the technical things about CE, but it's really about how to conduct yourself in the workplace, how to sustain yourself, conflict resolution, those types of things. It's just like, okay, well, we do scenario training. So it's like real world application. That's the theme throughout CE, is like real world experience, and how do you apply it immediately. So that's all I have from that.
Across many of the disciplines in career and technical education, that facet of workforce development is already a part of it. And so where Ms. Rollins is talking about programs where they learn before they get into them, if a person were to go into an apprenticeship program, they're going to learn many of those soft skills while they're actually on the job, because they basically are being mentored by journeymen who are preparing them for that next level, that next step. They're getting the education, they're getting a job with the benefits, and they're getting out without any debt, and they're on their way to a lifetime opportunity. The same thing happens with many of our colleges in internship settings. The idea is that I'm going to get a taste of what it feels like. And you spoke to that acceleration, Dr. Glavatoff, that idea that I want to experiment. I want to see if this is something that actually fits me. So if I'm in automotive, if I'm in digital media, if I'm in the waterworks, water utility sciences, I'm going to get an internship in that respective field, which means I have to be at work on time, which means I have to dress appropriately because I'm going to be wearing a uniform, or I'm going to be expected to have certain skill sets, and I'm going to get a chance to get mentored and to learn those. And that's another thing I love about CT. It teaches that team aspect often of working together, especially in many of the areas. When you're handling heavy equipment, if you're not working as a team, somebody can get seriously injured, seriously hurt. And so that's a part of what happens in CT that doesn't often happen in traditional education. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like in workforce development, a big feedback we got from employers were students come ready with their technical skills, but the employable skills, they wanted us to help our students gain. And some of the things that they pointed out were things like empathy and collaboration, resilience, communication, adaptability, that these are employable skills that our industry partners were telling us we're missing. So some of the things that CTE programs have done is actually incorporate these soft or employable skills in curriculum. There's a lot of curriculum. There's one called New World of Work that embeds this curriculum. We believe that these are teachable. They're teachable skills, just like the technical skills are, that will help people show up. And some of that shows up in how you communicate that you have those skills on your resume. So part of our job is to help not only with, giving students practice in these, but then how do you talk about it? How do you talk about it on your resume? How do you talk about it in an interview? How do you talk about it when you're networking? And so part of that is like CT is very big on putting your learning to practice. So we get our industry partners to come in to do mock interviews, to do resume reviews. This summer, I developed a mentorship program focused on career so that our students had the opportunities to work one-on-one with somebody that matches in their career interest. That's going to give them an idea of, like, for this career, what are those employable skills I need and how can I practice those? How can I talk about them? How can I share them with folks? And I think that's just one of the great things about, for me, working in this field, is that you really get an opportunity to support students and building those skills that they need. And I think kind of that the intention we talked about of manifesting, like giving them the opportunity to practice and learn what these skills are, is very much embedded in CTE programming.
Can I just say something just really quick? I'm not gonna, I just want to say ditto to everything that she said. But I also want to talk about, from a counselor perspective, a STEM counselor and a prior Umoja coordinator. It is something that we also had embedded in our Umoja program. So those students that attend the student development courses or want to be a part of this, we completed like interviewing skills where students, we set up a day where there were different staff and faculty that were there that interviewed students. And it's something that we did every year. Not only did they interview, they got an opportunity to talk about the things that they did and they didn't do in the interview. They spoke about how they dressed, how they presented themselves, all sorts of things. So I want to say that it's part of our Umoja community that's supposed to help our students with this also. It is something that in our programs that we should be doing this. I know we can't do it because of COVID the same way, but we had like a closet where students could come and just pick up some clothes. Clothes were donated. They could pick up clothes to interview. These are things in our program that we have to start have it embedded in our program for our students in order to learn these sorts of skills.
Ashe, Danielle. Lisa, you mentioned New World of Work. I've talked to a number of colleges around New World of Work, and I say the same thing, Danielle. This is not a CTE piece. First of all, it should be across the curriculum and across the student's experience, which means it's in class, it's out of class, it's in student clubs, it's at the career center and transfer center. It's everywhere that we need to be uplifting these skills. It's not just one course or one discipline's responsibility, like communication. That is not the communications department's responsibility. That's across their academic experience that we need to be contextualizing how this looks in different spaces. So we got about 15 minutes left. I see your hand, Kawana. I'm gonna have you talk to additional point. You said you're shaking your head. I see you. But I had a good question in the chat that I want to get to before we hit our time. And that was, there's a couple of good questions. So the first one is, what are the growing, less known industries students should look into that CTE can prepare them for?
If no one wants to chime in, I'm going to right off the bat. I'm going to throw out a bunch. Logistics, global logistics. We touch everything in the world. That's just as simple as that. You will make a bundle of money, whether you believe it or not. And one of the young ladies spoke to their campus, water, utility sciences, and other utilities. Let's face it, without water, we die. It's just that simple. The biggest part of that field is getting ready to retire, and they need people. 2 classes and you're in. It's just that simple. And they start out at about $45,000, $50,000. After 5 years, they're in 6 figures. And that's true. All right. Automation, robotics, anything that's technical or science. One of the things that it didn't disturb me, but it's something that I don't think everybody saw. Again, thank you, Dr. Glazatov, for sharing that table. Did you notice how few of our African-American students have realized the benefits of CTE versus our Latinx brothers and sisters and the non-minority community. Those tables, those bars were much higher because they've recognized, and of course the Asian community has also recognized that they use this as a stepping stone into technical high skill areas. It's just that simple. It's the CTE folks that are working on fuel alternative cars. It's the CTE folks that are working on designing automobiles and those types of engineering areas. So what I'm saying to you, it's limitless. We could spend just 2 hours on that in the future, Doc, if you ever decide to have another panel of that nature.
And then I think to add to what Mr. Vaughn said, those are definitely ones that we see growing in workforce development. Always the health fields are growing, but it's not always just the nurses and the doctors. We're looking for the technicians, the respiratory technicians, the people who are doing surge tech, radiology technicians. Those are often overlooked in healthcare that pay extremely well. Dental hygienists, these are things that a lot of students don't consider when they think of medical fields. Other trends, especially in California right now, really big, tree trimmers. We need that. PG&E needs that. We need to help that with, our fire safety that we know in California is a big deal. Those jobs are coming up. It's a certificate that you can get. And then cybersecurity and cloud development. Those are really big. And those are also CE pathways that people can get into.
I was going to say the cybersecurity and Cisco, it's 4 classes. 4 classes, you take 2 classes in 1 semester. So within 2 semesters, you can be done with the Cisco training and get hired and make really good money. I think they said everything else. We're really looking at going green. It was said, some years back that in the next 15 years, 50% of the jobs won't be here the way that they are here. When you're looking at all the companies and things that are closing down and things that are happening, the jobs that are moving forward really are the jobs from CTE.
Great. And I want to close with an opportunity for each of you to talk about any college or statewide initiatives that are happening around CTE that our students need to be aware of.
Can I just open this? So I want to encourage students, because I'm coming from a counseling background, a counseling perspective. I think that it's important that you look at the local colleges around you. There's not one college that has one program. If you look at the colleges around you, we all share certain programs. So for example, while Valley may have aeronautics and and have mechanics, you can go to Norco and they have the engineering. You can go to Moreno Valley and they have fire and Crafton, they have fire, technology, police department, those sorts of things that you can get into. This is a collaboration from our community colleges so that you can go to anyone. We have 4 or 5 colleges right around me that are just 30 minutes driving distance. So you have a lot of options that you can go to. You just start one place, see a really good counselor, hopefully it will be with Umoja, and that counselor can direct you to the program that you're interested in.
One of the couple of things that come to mind are definitely take advantage of if your college or college that you're considering have work experience. Those are credits that you can earn, college credits that are transferable for doing your internships, for doing a job that you might currently be in. So it's a way to support your education with the current your employment or your internships. I would also definitely stress the importance of, if your college offers it, I know we do at DVC, first time, full time, free tuition. It's great for students in CTE because you can get your degree and it's for free. And so you're able to get through your academics, and most CTE programs are designed to be from 10 months to 2 years. And so you can do that with programs like that, where you're getting your tuition paid for free. And so those are, I would definitely check with your local community colleges, check the ones in your area. I'm from the Bay Area. We have a ton of community colleges out here, and ask those questions. See what a career education program, what their resources are, how you can take advantage of those and put it to getting into the career that you're passionate about.
I would say a couple of things right off the bat, and I'm going to give a couple of plugs, and then I'm done. One thing about career and technical education is constant victory, because you don't have to wait 4 years to see some accomplishment. You can do that after a couple of classes, and you can continue to build upon that and continue to grow. But the other thing that I'm always concerned about, and I'm this way at Mount San Jacinto. I was this way when I was at Santiago Canyon College in Orange County, and also at OCC. On my campus right now, and Dr. Bing, who's our coordinator for Umoja, will tell you, while I spend a lot of time with our students, I have my little brothers, and the young ladies, I call them my daughters, because I'm old enough to be their dad as well as their granddad. And I'm very protective of them. And one thing that I share with them, there's nothing they can't do. I make a plea to the young sisters that are part of this discussion to be a part of that non-traditional movement that allows you to reach the same level as many of the men that are in this. As far as being African-American, I want everybody to pursue it. If you're an African-American student or Black student part of this program, consider it. But I always stress to my daughters on that campus, please look at these opportunities. They're going to provide a chance for you to reach your dreams and your goals, and provide that opportunity for you to continue all the way through your graduate work, and help you pay for it along the way. So I encourage that we don't talk about that a lot, because we always think of CTE as just being the hard hat with the orange or the yellow vest, and it's a bunch of dudes standing around. But that's not what it has to look like. That's not what it has to look like. So every time I see one of my daughters on the campus who say, I've gone into business, or I've gone into water utility sciences, I encourage them even more so, because I want to see them succeed.
Ms. Rollins, did you have anything else?
Just to add to that point, to earn a certificate of completion or a certificate of achievement, it's approximately 22 degree credits. And then to get your AA, it's about 64, and that's with the general education requirements attached to that. And one thing that I will say is that I know that with minorities, many of us struggle in the sciences, specifically math, and then some, transfer English classes. And one thing that's great about this Umoja community is that they offer so many supports that, will make sure that you're successful in completing these transferable courses, the algebra and the English 1A and 1B. So, it's a great program. And I would just say, don't let those issues hinder you from, really achieving that. I will say that I struggled with the math portion, and if I had access to these programs at that time, trust things would have been so much better for me. So that's all I have for that. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're hitting our time. I just want to thank our panelists again, Ms. Kawana Rollins, Ms. Danielle Smith Morton, Ms. Lisa Gwynn and Mr. Vaughn Lawson for just having this first of many discussions with our Umoja community around CTE. I'm gonna take you up, Mr. Lawson, on a round 2, and we're gonna do a little bit more deeper dive into some of those data points and really talk about what it all means. But I thank you, the community thanks you for starting us off with a lot to chew on, with a lot of resources. I just wanted to let the community know that we will have the presentation with the data around CTE, as well as resources from these colleges that were represented, as well as the state. So you can do your own research on your local colleges and what their programs are. We are going to have that in the Umoja Clubhouse in Excel event after lunch. So be on the lookout for that. And we thank you. We thank you all for joining us for this first live chat. So be well, come back after lunch and join us for our next session and our opening session with our Umoja community. Thank you all.
Thank you guys for having us. I really appreciate it. I feel like now that it's over, there's so much I forgot. I'm like, oh, I should have talked about this. And I should have said this in this program, and Eureka, where they can find out what school has what, you know, like.
We can hear you.
All those things. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you again.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
This is part 1 of many more talks around CTE, because I find it to be the hidden gem